Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365. It's officially schedule release day across the NFL. That'll happen this evening. Johnny Mac, how you doing this Wednesday morning, brother, on Birds 365?
Happy Logistics Day. Happy Logistics Day. Get a bunch of dates and times, finally. You got a bunch earlier, but you get them all today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what's the most important part of this day, John? I know we joke about it and we play the wins and losses and all, but I do think there's a real element. I mean, remember last year we got the week 5 bye, and we're like, oh, it's an early bye. It turned out to be a good thing for the Birds, or at least it seemed like it was a good thing because the season changed around. What do you think really matters today in the schedule release from a football standpoint, if anything?
Depends. How good are you? If you're as good as they were last year, nothing. Just
Right.
roll by. They'll just roll by everybody. If it's a normal year for normal teams, you look for themes. You look for 3-game road trips or something like that. You look for difficult. You look for short weeks. You look for difficult travel, which is not going to be too much of an issue for the Eagles this year. But I'll tell you what, same thing with home field advantage in general. If you're good, nothing matters. If you're not good, things like home field advantage matter a lot. And places like Lambeau Field, I say that all the time. That the storied history of Lambeau Field didn't exist between Bart Starr and Brett Favre. There's like a 2-decade period where they went to Milwaukee to play half their schedule because they didn't give a shit. They weren't winning anything. Yeah, if they're as good as they were last year, nothing matters. Literally nothing. They will roll over teams and win 16 of 17, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, no matter what the circumstance. But, it's probably going to matter at least a little bit more. Hard to replicate that. Possible, but hard. So, and we'll get the dates and times and all that kind of stuff. But that's all it is, logistics. You already know the opponents, so you're just putting, and it means a lot for people that travel and need to plan and things like that. So that part of it's big. But as far as the opponents, you already knew the opponents.
Right.
And that's been out since the end of last season because it's structured that way. And you know who your opponents are going to be next season by how last season finished. So, and it's also a big day for social media people around the league. It's in the league, it's known as the social media Super Bowl because they got to come up with things to unveil the schedule. The LA Chargers, they don't win a lot of regular Super Bowls, but they win a lot of social media Super Bowls. They're famous for coming up with creative stuff. Already Tampa Bay's hinting that John Gruden's going to open a box of the schedule. He's been doing that stuff that's become pretty popular. So it's a big day for the social media people.
Good stuff there. Yeah, you're right. Apparently the Eagles are going to have a good one this year too. So it's 8:00 Eastern tonight. The schedule will release. I believe it's on ESPN or NFL Network. So let me double check that. Yeah, NFL Network tonight. So for those who don't have NFL Network, I will stream live right after it if you want to check in on here. And I'll give you guys the full rundown of the schedule. Every game will be revealed. And so far, we only know 4. So nothing has changed. We got the 4 pretty rapidly at the start of the week here. And then nothing yesterday on the new game. So we still have those 4 games, John, and they're spread out, but you got 3 of 4 are home games. So you're going to figure out a lot more of the away games, obviously, tonight. What do we have? 9 home games, 8 away games this year, John?
I got to double check.
check.
No, I think they have 9 road games because they have
See, I thought they'd give them 9
on the
home
road.
They did Brazil last year.
No, that has nothing to do. The extra game from 16 to 17 goes back and forth, toggles back and forth from year to year.
So last year they legitimately forfeited a home game to play in Brazil.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot. Yeah.
I mean, no, I just didn't know if they would make it up to them on the back end. I know you forfeited it last year, but
no, that's not malleable. It toggles between AFC and NFC every year. So, one year you get the extra game. Now, they hope to get to 18 games. But now that you have this goofy, unbalanced 17-game season, you have that extra game. And it's always an interconference game, and it toggles back and forth. And this year it's Buffalo, first place team. That's part of it. And that's in Buffalo. So they have the extra game on the road. Yeah, the Brazil, we talked about that a lot. That's at the beginning of the season. Talk about what we started the show with. What matters? Well, nothing matters if you're as good as the Eagles turned out to be. But as we talked about, we didn't know how good they were going to be at that time, and that was a big story. You're giving up a home game against a potential playoff opponent down the road, and if you lose that game might end up being in Green Bay. It was a big deal. But they won the game. They didn't play that well, but they persevered. They won the game. A lot of mistakes on both sides of the football. They ended up playing Green Bay. It was at Lincoln Financial Field. They obviously won that game. So nothing matters. Extra road game, Brazil. If you're as good as the Eagles were last year, not much matters.
It's true. It's true. I'll tell you one game that matters. It's a good call here by our buddy in the chat, Bombay Trippy. He's down in the Tampa area, so he always goes to the Eagles games in Tampa. He says, "I just hope we play Tampa in November or December."
Yeah,
we talked about that last year.
You don't want that heat.
Game, yeah.
You don't want that humidity. The Eagles. I mean, even that though, it had more to do. They didn't handle it well. I joke, like people never think of weather games. They always think of weather games like Green Bay and cold and wind. A snow game here against the Rams. Those are weather games too. Tampa Bay, where it's 90 plus degrees and 100% humidity.
Yeah, right.
And the Eagles kind of fell apart, but you know, they also didn't have AJ Brown in that game, DeMonte Smith, Lane Johnson. So, you know, that played a factor in it as well. But they didn't handle that well. But nobody's going to handle that. How do you get used to that?
Yeah, well, I just hope it's later in the year, so it's a little cooler. I know it doesn't really ever get cold down there, but a little cooler in the November, December portion of the year. So hopefully that game is in Tampa. John, it feels to me like we play Tampa in Tampa every freaking year.
Yeah, it's been that way.
Yeah,
it's been that way. And that's been the one team they've had some problems with. They beat them once, but you know, they lost twice in the playoffs.
Yeah,
they got embarrassed last year, which kind of, you know, at the time I thought, well, boy, that's an overreaction because they didn't have those players. Yeah, they didn't play well, but it was partially explained by not having three of your best players. And that's when they made the move during the bye week and totally shifted their philosophy, which, hey, it worked. So it's hard in hindsight, it was the right thing to do. But I thought it was unfair at the time to Jalen Hurts and the company, you know, to scale back the offense. I'm like, what's the big deal? What's the panic about? But hey, it's hard to argue with them.
Yeah, it is, but it's still in hindsight. You can still say that was a quick decision, but because it worked so well, they never felt the need to go back. Maybe, you know, they probably wouldn't have maybe made the change for so long of the year if they didn't have such big success with it. But no doubt, John, the Thanksgiving game came out. It's not the Eagles. The Eagles are playing on what's it called? Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, that 3:00 game. But the Cowboys are playing the Chiefs as one of the Thanksgiving Day games. That's a great game there. So you'll get to see Cowboys go up against the Kansas City Chiefs on Thanksgiving. So that's a pretty good game there.
Yeah, well, you know, this league is really boiling now with Thanksgiving. Obviously, the Cowboys are always involved, and the Lions are always involved. So you have that tradition, but and now that the Lions are good for many years, it was a disaster to have the Lions involved. But boy, I mean, this league is really boiling down to like they won 4 teams. Everybody's fighting over 4 teams. Yeah, which I don't know if that's good, to be honest. Rare picking at the league, you know. You gotta elevate some other teams so people are interested in those teams as well. But you know, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys. I don't know who's for. I don't know. There's talk about elevating, you know, Ravens. There's certain teams I would say second tier, I would say tier 1 television wise, Cowboys, Eagles, Chiefs. That's it. Is it somebody I'm missing? Somebody I'm missing?
No, I don't think so. Maybe the
And that's
Bills, but not
that's it.
really. They don't pull like that. I just like the team. I mean, I think Josh Allen's fun to watch, but I don't think he pulls ratings like those
Well,
two.
everybody's got their personal favorites, but yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
see Buffalo as a
No, they don't
tier
pull.
1 team.
Yeah, no.
A lot of people talked about Chicago because of the optimism, and the big markets, and maybe it turns into that. Obviously, the Giants and Jets being so bad for so long, boy, that is
Do
really.
you think the Eagles and the Cowboys has become one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL? Simply not because of the history, or I mean the history's there as well. But you talk about Ravens Steelers a lot. That's a great rivalry. But Cowboys and Eagles are dominating the ratings right now. So obviously, when you can reach more people, it has a bigger meaning. Do you think that's up there?
Well, I think it's always been up there.
I don't know. Dallas used to not reciprocate it, John. It used to be all the Eagles fans cared about it more than Dallas. That always bothered me.
Well, I always, in different eras, like in the Staubach era, the Redskins were their biggest rival, and it was more one-sided. And even in the Aikman, I would say, it was probably more the Giants, I guess, from their perspective. So, it's always, if it's, kindling doesn't have a rivalry with fire, was the old Alec Baldwin line. If it's not competitive, that's why the Ravens Steelers have been, so compelling over recent years, because it's competitive. You have the tradition, but if one side's dominating, like Eagles Giants would be the biggest rivalry.
Right.
Back in the Parcells day, the Giants are brutal. It's been a decade. They're awful. So nobody cares. They just sleep on it. That should be and could be the biggest if they ever get going again. And now Washington, for many years dormant, now all of a sudden popping up. So to me, rivalries depend on, you got to have competition on both sides. And years ago, it was Cowboys dominating. Now it's Eagles. Not that they haven't dominated the Cowboys from game to game, but that's why I think it's become a little bit bigger from their end than it used to be, because they used to dominate and now they don't dominate. So it becomes a bigger deal.
Yeah, so we'll see the full schedule tonight. That will come down. Looking forward to seeing that. We got the 4 games so far. You got the Cowboys opener, you got Packers, Bears, and the Commanders in Week 16. John, that's a home game, right? The Commanders in Week 16.
No, that's in Washington.
Okay, that's in Washington. So we're still waiting to see when they were when the Washington comes to Philly. That's a big game there, John. That's 16 games.
Yeah,
that's probably the one game on the schedule so far that we can look at and say that's going to have real ramifications, or potentially is going to have real ramifications to it.
If everything unfolds the way we expect, and a lot of things can go in a different direction, but that could be for the NFC East, that game, in theory. So, yeah, that could be a very big game from the timing. And you prefer to have the game here, like I said yesterday. You prefer in the home and home to have the home game late in case you really, really need it. And unfortunately, the Eagles have to go down there. But as I said, they've won down there plenty over the years because it's been such a bad team. But now they're popping up. It took them, they only got 6 minutes of Jalen Hurts, and they had to win with 6 seconds left, but they won last year. So they're getting better, and it's becoming a bigger rivalry again, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You need rivalries.
What do you think of the Giants, John? Think they're going to be any good this year? I think Jackson Dart's going to be.
I think they're going to. No. I think they're going to be better.
Do you think You don't think Jackson Dart's going to have success in the NFL?
I mean, he might, but it's not going to be immediate. Hey, he's not going to start. He's not going to start. I mean, that depends. A lot of guys can develop. I mean, you've seen it here with Jalen Hurts and the 2nd round pick. You can develop, but I don't see the history of the New York Giants, at least in this era, of developing players anywhere. So, I mean, they have to start doing things better. Number one, organizationally. They have some really good defensive players. We talked about all NFL teams have good players. We talked about that yesterday. We talk about that a lot. They have a really good defensive front. They're starting to go in the right direction. You should go in the right direction when you draft in the top 10 every year. You should start accumulating some good players. And all of a sudden, maybe you wake up one day and say, "Oh, they got some really good players." And they've started that process, and they seem to be doing things a little bit better. But the reality is, Russell Wilson's going to start. He's limited at this stage of his career. I imagine when it becomes clear whether that's midway through the season or a little bit later, and they're not going to be in the playoffs, they'll make the shift and go to Jackson Dart. And he's probably not going to play well early, but at least they're starting to make better decisions. But it's so difficult, though, to be – and, Saquon's the biggest example. You just can't convince people that was a good decision by the New York Giants because of what he did in Philadelphia. I mean, I know the difficulty of that from doing this show. A good decision for one team doesn't mean it's a good decision for another team.
They can't be absolved of the blame, though, because the reason they were in that position in the first place is because they made so many other bad decisions.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that
that's
was just
part
the
of it.
boiling
But,
point.
the only thing you can do when you make a bad decision is pivot and try to, go in a good direction.
Right.
Like when the Eagles make a bad decision with Jalen Reagor,
right?
Well, they pivot and all of a sudden Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are here. They wouldn't, the butterfly effect, if Jalen Reagor turned into a good player, one of them certainly wouldn't be here because they wouldn't have been looking for it.
Is he still in the league, Jalen Reagor?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Chargers.
I thought he was on a 1-year deal with them.
Yeah, but he re-signed.
He re-signed.
Yeah.
Wow, so that's pretty good. Good for him.
I don't know if he's going to make the team, but he's still hanging on. And Andre Dillard as well. People bring it up and say, "Boy, that was a bad pick," and but Jordan Mailata develops into Jordan Mailata, and nobody cares really. She ended up with the wrong All-Pro tackle, but you've got an All-Pro tackle.
Yeah, I mean, shit. If we didn't have Jalen Hurts, we'd still be crying about Carson Wentz. That made that a lot easier too. John, one other thing I wanted to ask you about, non-football related, but I got to get your take on it. Is the MLB did something yesterday with Pete Rose and reinstating his ability to go to the Hall of Fame. What are your thoughts on that? I know you're an old school baseball fan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've said for years it's funny. I think Mike Gill's going to be on here in a second.
Yeah.
I think he and I have had this discussion. I've always been from day one. It's a Hall of Fame, but best baseball players, not best human beings. Yep. I mean, to tell the story of the game, you damn well have to have Pete Rose in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think it's dumb that he's not in. I think it's dumb that Barry Bonds is not in there. I think it's dumb that Roger Clemens is not out there. I think it's dumb that people think they can gatekeep and say, I know this guy did PEDs. I know this guy didn't do PEDs. You don't know jack shit. You don't know who did PEDs, who didn't. You don't know how many players Roger Clemens pitched against that were doing PEDs. You don't know how many pitchers Barry Bonds batted against that were doing PEDs. You just think you do. So these gatekeepers are just full of themselves. Is he a Hall of Fame baseball player? Yes. It's a museum about the history of the game. He should have been in years and years and years and years ago. And I'm not making any justifications on gambling on baseball or your own team. What this came up in football with O.J. Simpson, who was obviously accused of murder, and most people think he committed murder, double murder. But it's the Hall of Fame of best football players.
Yeah, right.
Is he a Hall of Fame football player? Yes. Is he a Hall of Fame human being? Probably not.
Definitely not. Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm with you too. I just wanted to get your take on it. I figured that's the take you would have, but good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, let's get to Mike Gill. Talk about the schedule release coming up here tonight, this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. We'll talk about that. We got 4 games so far. Let's see what Mike Gill thinks. We're bringing him in now from 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on the socials at Mike Gill Show and subscribe to his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show as well. Listen to him on 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Mike, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
I'm doing all right, boys. I feel like my Sundays are going to be open this year.
Yeah, we got 4 games and we don't have a Sunday game, Mike Gill. That's pretty impressive.
And John, I know you hate leaks, but now there's a leak. We're playing the Giants on a Thursday night game, so that would continue the streak of no Sundays if it's true.
Yeah. Listen, I would imagine not very many 1:00 Sunday games, regardless. I don't know, John. Does the Saturday game count as a primetime game? Is the Black Friday game? Because you can have 6 primetime games.
Well, Black Friday doesn't, because that's at 3:00. We don't know the timing of the Washington game, the Saturday game. So that could be, that might not be. We don't know that. Fox never announced that. So we don't know that yet. But the Prime Video Black Friday game, that's at 3:00. So
right. So you could get 6 primetime games so far. Does the Thursday night opener count as one? Or is that like you get that one and that doesn't count against your 6?
No, that counts. That counts.
So they have room for possibly 4 more, and I would imagine all 4 of those slots will be filled. The Eagles will play 4 more primetime games, and then mostly, I would imagine, if you're playing on a Sunday, it will be a 4:25 Sunday game. I would imagine very few 1:00 Sunday games for the Eagles this year. So you should have a lot of early Sundays available to get your chores done before an Eagles game this year.
Yeah, it's not the best for us, but no one cares.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of this Sunday 1:00 game, but that probably means you don't have a very good team, basically, if you're playing Sunday 1:00 a lot. I will say this, though, Mike. Generally, and I brought this up, the NFL obviously does a very good job. You see how they built up this schedule release. You have the schedule for the schedule release. Yeah, ABC, they have so many partners now, and CBS and Fox, they all get their little time to introduce the big games. Tier 1, the tier 1 teams, as I'm calling them, it's basically the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Shouldn't this league, focus on try to build up a few other teams?
Is Detroit a big enough draw? They would be a good team. Trying to think what else. I mean, the Giants aren't very good. The Jets aren't very good. That's the New York market.
Bears,
2 LA teams. I mean, if you got the Rams, they were a playoff team last year. I would imagine they're just not the LA is just not a high profile football market for whatever reason. Those 2 teams do not resonate, as like the Lakers or Dodgers do nationally. The Bears might be. I think the Bears are going to be a team like the Jets a couple of years ago. The Jets got all those primetime games because of Aaron Rodgers. I think the Bears will get some because of Caleb Williams, the new coach. They're going to take a shot that the Bears are pretty good. I think Washington will get a bunch. They want Daniels on TV, so you'll probably get a lot of Washington in these primetime games. Buffalo, not a huge draw. I mean, as an AFC power over there. Baltimore generally is a team that you'll see in the primetime. Trying to think, is there anybody else? I mean, the West, you got San Francisco, who's kind of stuck.
I should mention Green Bay, because of their
Pittsburgh
history.
and Green Bay are 2 traditional teams, and
Yeah.
Have they bailed on the Raiders finally? We used to get a lot of Raiders.
They bailed. They bailed on the Raiders.
Yeah.
I
mean, listen, I just saw, Dallas is playing Kansas City on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, that's a game that you would never think is getting Thanksgiving treatment, because they don't need to put a high-profile game on Thanksgiving.
Exactly. So why are you putting the Chiefs in Dallas? Yeah, I mean, that's a waste of a good spot that is going to generate some interest for somebody else. That's kind of exact point.
I thought the Eagles were at Detroit for some reason this year, and I was like, I wonder if they'll put Philly and Detroit as the game before and make it the most watched football day ever. Because if you put Detroit and Philly on in the pregame in the 1 o'clock, I guess it's a 12:30 spot, followed by the Dallas game, you would have a monster day of viewership there. But I still think Philly is a candidate for a Christmas Day game. I know that whole Packers thing did not work out because a lot of people just figured, okay, Saturday, Thursday, that'll be the way they go. That doesn't preclude them from putting the Eagles on Christmas against somebody else.
No. Thursday's a lot different than Wednesday, Mike, because they consider Thursday a normal day now. Yeah, everybody's got to play. Now, the Eagles, if this comes to fruition, I don't know where with the schedule leak, and I hate schedule leaks, but Zander brought it up. So if they're playing the Giants on Thursday, they already have the extra Thursday for the opener. They're not playing on Christmas then, if that Giants thing is true. Can't have 3 Thursday games.
Is that a rule, or are you just speculating?
You have to have at least one. The opener, I don't see. The opener is weird. That whole, because it's a Sunday night football broadcast on Thursday night. So does that count as a Thursday night game in your allotment?
Well, it counts from the extra standpoint. You can have 2. Now, the NFL changes its rules on the fly.
And they can flex you, by the way.
They can flex you. Mm-hmm. So they changed their rules so much on the fly. I'm not saying they couldn't do it, but to have a team scheduled to play 3 Thursday games, that would shock.
I don't know, man. If you were a Chiefs fan, take a look at their schedule last year. I felt like they were playing on every day but Sunday. I mean, they were on Black Friday. They were on Thursday. They were on, Christmas, where they found a spot for the Chiefs. I feel like Philadelphia's going to get that treatment.
Exactly. I mean, we got 4 games, and we got Monday, we got Thursday, we got Friday, and we got Saturday. We don't have Sunday.
Right. And I remember talking to Colin Thompson, who played for Carolina, about this. And he was saying, look, the primetime games are a pain for the players. Like, they do not like getting out of the routine. Yeah. And if you're playing a Monday night game on the road, you're not getting home to the wee hours of the morning. You still have to get up the next day to go watch the film. And your whole kind of week is thrown off. If you're doing that every week, that's where the truly really good teams stand out, is when they can adjust their routines and fit these different schedules in. They're creatures of Sunday 1 o'clock or Sunday 4:25. You start throwing in Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every other day of the week.
I wrote that exact thing at Sports Illustrated yesterday. These guys are creatures of habit. They want Sunday to Sunday.
Yeah,
they want everything. Wednesday is the big practice day. Thursday, Friday, walkthrough, game. That's what they want. Mm-hmm. But I got to tell you, the Eagles proved last year, like, if you're good, none of that stuff matters. All of that stuff matters if you're not even bad, but if you're mediocre, if you're one of the crowd, all of that stuff matters. If you're good, doesn't matter. You just go out and win.
I agree. And by the way, it's funny because the Pickens trade was made, and Dallas is going to get their 6 primetime games anyway. I was wondering if, like, that kind of shifted them to get some more coverage now, because there's a little bit more buzz about Dallas getting Pickens, and maybe that, but I think the TV networks would take Dallas in primetime regardless.
When is that going to end, Mike? You talked about Las Vegas, the Raiders, and part of the Raiders is Oakland to Los Angeles to Las Vegas, but they've been so bad now for so long.
Good question.
The luster of that sort of is gone now from the Raiders. Does that ever happen to the Cowboys?
Well,
why
the Raiders
are people so invested with the Dallas Cowboys?
We talk about this a lot because I'm 48. So when I'm growing up in the mid-90s in high school, Dallas is winning Super Bowls. So if you're in my age bracket, you are one of these, bandwagon Cowboy fans. Their kids are also probably bandwagoned, and then their kids. So we're probably still 2 generations behind, because if you're in your 30s, Zander, how old are you?
27.
All right, so you're right below the cut. You've never seen Dallas win anything.
No,
So
no.
anybody in like the 35 to 25 age bracket has never seen Dallas win anything. They've never been relevant at all. So you wonder if the whole jumping on the bandwagon from the teams in the 90s dissipates at some point. But it's the people who were my age, their kids, and then their kids, I think, are still, hey, we're Cowboys fans because they won, and my dad was a Cowboys fan. The same reason why the people that are my age were Cowboys fans is because their dad remembers seeing the star in the 70s. So I think you still have another 20 years of this. Now, the other thing would be Jerry Jones is in his 80s. Once he is no longer with the team, does the son have the same cachet? I mean, Jerry Jones is a pseudo celebrity. Does the son have the same celebrity that the father does? And does that kind of wear a little bit? You know, one of the things with the Raiders is the son didn't have the same cachet as the father did. Not to mention they're in Oakland, they're in LA, they're back in Oakland, now they're in Vegas. So that kind of wiped off a little bit.
That's interesting. You're right. You're right about Al Davis, certainly, compared to Mark. And you know, Jerry Jones, but boy, I have a difficult time explaining like why the Cowboys are the Cowboys. I really do. It's like,
I'm telling you, man, when I was in college, so they beat the Steelers, and I was in West Virginia at the time, so a lot of Pittsburgh fans. You had like this group of Cowboy fans, so I'm like 18, 19, 20 years old. Those people were all jumping on the Cowboy bandwagon at that time. So those people are asking how old I am. I'm 48 years old. I'm
you know what? 50. You know why I kind of push back on that, Mike, is, you know, bandwagon people are bandwagon people. And generally, if you don't win, they jump off the bandwagon.
Yeah, that's true. But I live down the shore here, and I know a lot are just hardcore Cowboys fans, man. It is bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing because, you know, Eagles fans will say, you know, oh, they get pumped up by the league for whatever reason, and they do, but so do the Eagles. And now Kansas City, as I said, are the three, to me, tier one teams. Maybe you kind of debate some others, but those are the three clear tier one television teams to me. But the thing about the Cowboys is you can complain about it, but they deliver TV ratings. So people watch them.
That will also, you know, until there was a game last year. Did they get flexed out of a game last year?
They
was
did.
Them and I was shocked that they flexed them out because I was listening to a podcast. I'm a big sports, you know, media podcast geek there. And one of the network executives was like, yeah, we'll never flex a Cowboy game out, you know, if given the opportunity.
Well, I mean, the one year they were 1-15 with.
Well, that was in 1992.
Yeah. I mean, there's always those little pockets and anomalies.
Actually,
when
what
so
year was
bad.
That? 1988, they went 1-15. I was in 7th grade.
They were so bad.
And at that point, when I was in 7th grade, John, they were 1-15, and there were Cowboy fans in my school. I'm telling you, man, it's crazy.
At some point, if you're 1-15, you got to give. I don't know if I can call those people bandwagon people. If you're 1-15 and sticking by them, you know,
I will say I worked with a guy, big Cowboys fan, and he does go to games, so I'll give him that credit. He travels to a game every year because that's another thing. It's like, okay, you're a fan of this team, you've never seen them play, blah blah blah. He does travel to Dallas to go to a game. And he's not an obnoxious Cowboys fan. I know another guy who is the Cowboys fan to a T. The referees always screw them. The whole league's against. I said, listen, if there's one team in this league that the NFL wants to be good, it's the Cowboys, right? They want them on TV as much as possible. They're not trying to get them eliminated from the playoffs. They want them to advance in the playoffs. That's the highest rating possibility that they can get. So the league's not out to get the Cowboys, or am I off base on that?
No, I don't think you're off base at all. And I also think
I say the same thing. The Eagles fans. There's so many Eagles fans who believe the league is against the Eagles. I'm like, I mean, they're tier one, man. Every game, the first 5 games announced. Now that's part of winning the Super Bowl. But I mean, they want.
Okay, I didn't know if you guys talked about this when the game got announced. I was a little surprised Eagles-Cowboys was the opening game. They don't need to have that high profile of a game to kick off the season. Same situation with
they want a big rating to kick off the season. That's
but
exactly
I think
what
you could put Philly, Washington, and got a huge rating. You could have put Philly, Detroit, or even the Rams.
Anybody,
Right.
and it's going to get a huge rating, but it's going to be supercharged.
Well, I obviously that game is September 4th, 2025. The last time the Eagles and Cowboys played on opening day was September 3rd, 2000. It was the pickle juice game, as we know. That pickle juice game is the coronation of the Eagles that we now know. That game started this era of Eagles football as we now know it. Andy Reid winning that game. It launched that season. They went 11-5. They ended up winning the division the next year. They went to the NFC Championship game. And ever since that pickle juice game, this team has been one of the model franchises, as you said, one of the top tier franchises in football. So 25 years later, almost to the day, that pickle juice game kicked off this Eagles era of football.
Since the turn of the century, which is now, basically a quarter of a century, we're all getting old. 25 years now, the team most primetime games in the NFL, Dallas Cowboys. Number 2, Philadelphia Eagles. So both fan bases are insane if they think the league is out to get them. Both of them. Both fan bases are insane. The league loves both of these franchises for different reasons.
Yeah, very different reasons. The Eagles are damn good at football. I think that's why they've become a tier 1 team. The Cowboys, Mike, I mean, remember, your point about Jerry Jones is good, but I mean, the Cowboys cheerleaders have a Netflix show.
Yeah.
Like
it's a big part of it. I should have mentioned that.
I work. My sisters were like, I'm watching the Cowboys cheerleader show. I'm like, you're watching what? They're not football fans. They don't turn on football ever.
Hey, there is a branding element to the Cowboys, which is what they've excelled in. And if we've learned anything about the world we live in today, if you brand yourself accurately, or not even accurately, you don't have to brand yourself accurately.
If you brand yourself well.
Brand yourself well, you can deceive people to make them believe you are something that you are not. And the Cowboys have done a great job of branding themselves.
Hey, I'm a Yankees fan, and I will admit the Yankees are usually they get a little bit more hype than anybody.
I did not know that, John McMullen. All these years, I did not know you were a Yankees fan.
Well, because I'm very objective with everything. But baseball's the only sport I don't cover, so it's the only thing I'm really a fan of at this stage. So I feel I can actually root for a team. But I can also acknowledge, they get a little bit of a bump above everybody else. And no matter how good they are, people think they're a little bit better than they really are. Same thing with the Cowboys. Same thing with the Celtics in basketball, the Lakers in basketball, probably the Canadians in hockey. I'm not a hockey guy, but I don't know if that's still, certainly Toronto. Notre Dame in college football would be that team.
Yeah, there's certainly teams that have the branding machine behind them. And look, it comes from viewership.
Duke in college basketball. Yeah.
Charles Barkley has been critical of ESPN because they always talk about the Lakers. And, the reason they always talk about the Lakers is because when they do, people don't turn the channel. If they talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, they generally will change the channel. I mean, it all comes down to ratings and money. Dallas, Lakers, Yankees, they draw. And look, Philadelphia, for the Eagles' sake, they are a big story nationally, generally too. You'll see the national networks talk a lot about the Philadelphia sports team. So the Eagles have put themselves in there, but it all goes back to the pickle juice game starting this era of Eagles.
It all goes back to Andy. That's what it goes back.
Yeah. Well, Andy, that pickle juice game was the opening day of 2000. And they won that game. And I don't, you go into that season, they were 5-11 the year before. I don't think people had a lot of expectations that team was going to be a playoff team, let alone win 11 games. And sure enough, they did. They won a playoff game, then they lost in the second round. But the next year they came back and went all the way to the NFC Championship game think Chris Warren might have been the running back on that team, or man, somebody. They played the Rams, the greatest show on turf that year, and lost in the NFC Championship game. And then after that, they won, and went to 4 NFC Championship games, a Super Bowl. Didn't win that Super Bowl, but they've turned themselves into probably the premier NFC. Now that they have the 2 Super Bowls, the Giants had 2 in the NFC. Tampa has 2, correct?
Yeah.
In the last 25 years?
If Jeffrey Lurie said gold standard today, I don't think he'd be laughed at. People would argue with him and say this and that, but when he said it, and he regards that as one of his bigger mistakes, if he said that today, I think you can credibly argue it, that this is the best organization.
He should have stuck to his guns. Look at what it created.
He jumped the gun at that stage. That's
I mean, hey, listen, the owner's got to be able to foreshadow the success of his business.
He had a premonition.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with that. Mike, I want to ask about the football part of it. What do you think of that opener versus the Cowboys? You think the Cowboys are going to be a good contender this year? You think the Eagles wipe the floor with them? What do you think of that opener versus the Cowboys?
I think we talked a little bit about last week, and maybe they made the Pickens trade, or I don't remember but they were plus 800 to win the division. But I think Dallas has definitely got good value at 800. I mean, this is a team that was decimated by injuries on the defensive side of the ball. You lose your quarterback, that's a major hurdle for anybody. Their offensive line was a mess last year. They've drafted up front on the line. They've added, one of their big problems over the years is they had CeeDee Lamb and nobody else. Now they get George Pickens, as long as, what's the betting odds on him keeping his head on straight? But having Dak Prescott back over Cooper Rush is a massive upgrade. And then they're healthy on defense. Eberflus comes in. I think he's a smart, good coordinator. Yeah, I think the Cowboys are definitely a significantly better team than they were at last year. Now, have they closed the gap on Philadelphia? Well, where does Philly have questions? Secondary. They have a new safety, possibly a rookie. Corner. Don't know what's happening there. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. Okay, that's going to be an interesting battle. So, yes, I do think that Dallas has made significant strides to kind of close that gap. Have they surpassed you yet? Not necessarily, but I definitely think that 7-10 record is certainly not indicative of what they can be.
The other games we have confirmed: Week 10 Monday Night Football at Green Bay. They're going to gaslight people. That's going to be the tush push game. Oh, they wanted a ban, blah blah blah. That's a game. Black Friday, we mentioned Week 12, Chicago Bears, Lincoln Financial Field, 3:00. That to me, Mike, that could be a really good game, or it could be the typical the Bears aren't just real, and by that point they're a bad football team, and the Eagles just roll over them. And then Week 16 at Washington, Fox Saturday game. We don't know the timing yet, but that to me, that's a bad spot from the perspective of, if it goes the way we think it's going to go, and it's going to be Eagles Commanders for the division, that game, you'd rather have the home and home game. You'd rather have your home game late, and Washington is getting it late. I don't like that spot.
Well, you could play them in Week 18.
Yeah, probably not going to. Yeah.
You see that happen from time to time where you play someone.
You're right. You're right.
I have seen that a lot, and it is a division game late. Maybe they do them back to, 2 out of the 3.
Boy, could you imagine that? Could you imagine?
Well, I will say in Washington, I just talked about the Cowboys being undervalued, and I'm not suggesting that I think the Commanders are going to stink, but they won 12 games last year. They won 1 game against a playoff team. I think at Washington, and they did win 2 playoff games, so yes, they did prove that they belonged, but the gauntlet of the schedule in the NFC East is a lot more challenging, so they better be ready for a 17-game challenge, much more challenging than they had the year before.
How about the Eagles? 16 of 17. We talked about, on paper, you mentioned just with Dallas, it looks like they got a little bit better. At the Bear, actually quite a bit better, because as you mentioned, the difference simply between Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush. You're going to be, if healthy, you're going to be in the conversation to at least be a wild card team, I would think. On paper, you could say Washington improved. They got Laramie Tunsil, even Howie Roseman said, good pick with Josh Connerly, offensive line. Deebo Samuel, I'm not the biggest fan, but he's better than what they had. So you can say credibly they got better. The Eagles, a tough sell to say on paper they got better because
no question. I'm saying I think the gap is definitely, I think we talked about a couple weeks ago that in Washington they did a poll and most of their fans think they've at least closed the gap, not maybe surpassed, but I think both teams have closed the gap. I mean, you've lost 4 starters on defense. At no spot in the replacement can you definitively say you're better. That's being fair. Now, that doesn't mean that someone might not be better. I mean, is Kaylee Ringo or Adoree Jackson going to be better than Darius Slay? My prediction would be no. Is Andrew Makuba going to be better than or Sidney Brown or anybody else be better than Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? I would say no. Is Maro Ojomo and Henderson going to be better than Milton Williams? My prediction would be no. Are any of those edge rushers going to be more consistent than Josh Sweat? I would say no. So now you've got 4 spots where you're lesser than the year before. I think that's a good sign that you have taken a step back and the other teams have taken a step forward.
A lot of questions last year, though, too, Mike. I mean, you think Vic Fangio can do it again?
Well, we're starting to put Vic Fangio in this.
I agree.
In this
he's a deity at
Scotland situation where you just hand him a guy and all of a sudden you just assume he's going to turn out to be a better. I've said this many times is that Vic Fangio has been in the league a long time. How many Super Bowls has he won with his defenses? One. So it's not like he just walks in and voila, you win a Super Bowl. He was in Denver and got fired. He was, the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Their defense was good. It wasn't like, so yes, he's a very good defensive coordinator. He had really good talent last year too. I think he can cultivate good talent. I definitely think that he could do a great job. He's got Quinyon Mitchell in his second year, Cooper DeJean now in his second year. You got a rookie possibly playing safety. You've got a possible first-year starter at corner. You don't just touch these guys on the shoulder and all of a sudden they turn into all pros. I mean, he's a very good coach, but remember, he doesn't come in with a resume of like 6 Super Bowl victories here as a defensive coordinator. So there's a lot of work to be done to improve every one of those spots. And Nakobe Dean, I don't know what he's going to be. I mean, is he going to come in and still be the same player that he was?
Nobody knows where Nakobe's going to be week 1, where Jahad Campbell, for that matter, is going to be week 1 because of injuries. So a lot of question marks on the defensive side of the ball. What about the off the field stuff? Every time every day there's something else. Howie Roseman, most valuable Philadelphian, Jalen Hurts, everybody's at the Met Gala. Jalen Hurts, Time magazine's, what was it, 100 most influential people. Every day that AJ's in Ole Miss giving the commencement speech. Cooper DeJean's going to be at some fast food restaurant on Roosevelt Boulevard today. Serving fries. Saquon's already done that at the chicken place, not giving anybody free plugs. What do you think that stuff's real? There's a lot of people getting pulled in a lot of different directions.
Well, we saw it a couple of years ago, right? The guys seemingly were all over the place. Now, I haven't seen Jalen Hurts all over the place. I remember when
what do you mean? He's at the Met Gala? He's like everywhere.
Yeah.
Like every magazine cover.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude's busy.
I feel like when they won in 17, that team was just in your face constantly. Hurts, he didn't go to the White House for whatever reason. Wasn't he on his honeymoon or something?
I forgot the White House. Yeah, I should have mentioned.
Well, the only one that was a team
chicken place.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't go there, but a lot of guys didn't go there. But for whatever, he didn't go to something else. I thought he had like what did he get married?
You
or
didn't go to
something?
AJ's engagement party.
Right, there you go. So I figure he's been kind of like out of the mix because he got married or whatever he's been doing. I feel like he's been kind of like a little quiet. I haven't seen him in every television commercial. Maybe that's coming, right? I mean, I feel like after they won the first time, these guys were all over the place in your face. Now you're talking about these little events and stuff. Yeah, I mean, that comes with the territory of winning the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to, I'm sure you'll get a car dealership 50 million commercials with somebody driving somebody's car here coming up soon and all that stuff. But hey, that's the price you pay when you win a Super Bowl here. The big, as we talked about at the beginning, your schedule is now changed, right? Your schedule has now changed because of your success. The great teams Kansas City has proven that you can have all these things and still win because they've been great. Can the Eagles do and replicate and surpass what Kansas City has been able to do with this run of success and keep the run going? That's what makes Kansas City so impressive, is the fact that they win, they get all the crazy schedules, they get all the commercials, and they keep winning. I mean, Andy's on commercials, for God's sakes.
Yeah. You're right. But things didn't work out well in 2017. The next season. That Super Bowl team. So hopefully they do handle it a little bit better. At Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform and subscribe to his YouTube page, 97.3 The Sports Bash, 2 to 6 every day. Can we say the Sunday? Are we allowed to plug that? Can you plug that yet?
Yeah, I'll be on Sunday, 9 a.m. on 97.5. I started that last week, so you can check me out there on Sunday mornings from 9 to noon. And I also, we're doing a new thing on my YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe, on the porch Sunday Phillies games, where we just kind of sit on the porch, watch the Phillies. You guys can be a part of the show, chat with us. It's going to be Sanchez and Skeens this weekend. And yesterday I had Nick Nurse on my show. So if you want to check out my YouTube channel, the interview with Nick Nurse is posted.
Well, nice. Good stuff, Mike. Make sure you guys go subscribe there. You can type in at Mike Gill Show. You can see his @ down there below where he is, and follow him on all the platforms, including YouTube. Mike, appreciate it, brother. We'll talk to you again next week. All right, man?
Yeah, man. All right, guys. See ya.
All right, thanks, Mike. There's Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Great stuff there. Johnny Mac from Mike. Good takeaways. A lot of.
I forgot to ask Mike. I wanted to get Mike's take on.
Oh shoot! Did I end him too early? My bad. Yeah. I would have let you go.
No, but that's fine. That's fine. I think he would agree with me, but did want to get his take on that because, but probably works out because people get mad because we're not talking about football.
Well, what did you want to get his take on
Pete Rose?
Oh, Pete Rose. Yeah, dang, we should have asked him for sure. Boy, Mike is having big questions about the Eagles this year, right, John?
Yeah, well, I think he's honest. Not because he agrees with me, but look, I don't know how any logical person can say the Eagles got better. He ran it down. The Eagles got better at safety opposite Reed Blankenship. You're lying to yourself. The Eagles got better at corner opposite Quinyon Mitchell. You're lying to yourself. The Eagles got better at edge rusher. You're lying to yourself. The Eagles got better at interior defensive lineman. You're lying to yourself. Can some of these guys develop and turn into a Zach Bond? Sure. I don't like the odds of that. I don't expect that kind of thing to happen every year.
Yeah, but you still have like a lot of the crux of the defense, right? I mean, my estimation is that because you didn't lose, you
still have your two best players.
That's what I mean. Everything is built around them. You got to have your focal points. We've talked about players that they identify as, long-term players, and most of those guys are still here. So, you're right. The questions exist, but I don't think it's going to be so much.
Well, yeah, but they've sort of drawn that line, as I've talked about, and the players above it, they're going to sign and they're going to keep, and the players below it, they're going to make difficult decisions. But the point is, and move on, like CJ and Slay is a salary cap guy at his age, and Josh and Milton, yada yada. But they're all really good players. That's why you were great. Not only the foundational guys, but the second tier guys were great. And now it becomes more difficult. They
Would you
they had
classify it
so
as
many good
blind faith?
players. You had to make these difficult decisions. Like for other teams, it's not that difficult. Oh, I got a good edge rusher. He's going to get whatever Josh got, 19, 20, whatever. Yeah, well, we're just going to pay him. Why wouldn't they? Especially coming off that Super Bowl performance. Why wouldn't they? But they don't have 80 other good players that they're paying massive money. And obviously I'm embellishing, but you get the point. You lose a really good player. And Milton Williams, you lose. I feel there's a lot of people talking themselves in that. Well, I like Moro Ojomo. The odds of him
we have at
playing,
least a bigger sample size from a Jomo than we do from a Kuba, Keely Ringo.
well, you have no sample size on Makuba. That's
none. And we don't have much on Keely Ringo, to be honest with you.
no, or any of the edge rushers.
Any of the edge rushers, right?
Certainly the Temu guys. Yeah, so on paper, it looks like the Cowboys have gotten a little bit better, not only from the Dak coming back situation, but I mean a little bit better from a talent standpoint. And Washington's gotten a little bit better from a talent standpoint. And on paper, even the Giants, on paper, the Eagles have gotten a little bit worse. I think that's fair to say. Now, part of that is they won the Super Bowl and everybody's picking at their bones. Nobody wants anything the Giants have, or even the Commanders at this stage of the game. That's part of being a champion. You suffer attrition. And the Eagles have suffered significant attrition on the coaching staff, on the roster, and now even with Anthony Patch leaving, you've seen the start of the executive part of it. Every aspect of the football operations. It's just what happens.
They do have 10 of 11 offensive players coming back, which I think is a big thing. Now, we've talked about the offense, and that's obviously that's a touchy subject too. Everything's a touchy subject this summer. It's weird.
I got another Jalen Hurts truther ripping me. And by the way, for all the look, if you start with a faulty premise, I'm not engaging.
Give me an example here.
Well, I got yelled at for me. It's not all about the stats. Like, has anybody listened to me for 10 minutes? I'm not a stats
that person
guy.
Obviously doesn't listen.
Yeah. So right there, I'm like, all right, I'm out. And he starts with, he won a Super Bowl and yada, yada, didn't win a Super Bowl. I'm like, I'm not arguing with a child. Like, if you can get back to that logic standpoint, I can't have a decent discussion. I mean, anybody who thinks Jalen Hurts had a better season last season than he had in 2022 when he was the runner-up to be the MVP of the NFL and the entire NFL, yeah, you're bullshitting yourself because of one game. And ironically, he played better in the Super Bowl after that season than he did when the MVP in this Super Bowl. Look, I can't. If you don't have a semblance of logic in your body, it's a waste of time. So for all these people that write and say, I mean, my God, I've explained it very, very clearly. The recency bias, he was freaking tremendous in the NFC Championship game. He was freaking tremendous in the Super Bowl. But also, he had some help. Most notably,
wasn't that largely dictated by how good the rest of you can't do that if you don't have Saquon Barkley in the best offensive line. So how am I going to, I can't really dock Jalen Hurts for that. You could dock him for the first 4 weeks. Where
I have never docked him from the supporting cast nonsense. I've constantly said there's never been a Super Bowl winner that hasn't won with a good supporting cast. But objectively, he's had 4 rookie seasons, 4 4 starting seasons as the starter of the Philadelphia Eagles. Objectively, you can't even argue it was number one. Number one was 2022. You can make an argument. I think it's number 3. His rookie season as a starter, second season, was his worst. Still good. Very good for a first-time starter, but that would be his worst. Last season was his second worst. 2023 with the collapse was the second best season, but people can't get past the collapse past their head. And 2022 was his best season. I mean, that the assumption because I don't even know why I went down this route. The assumption because you win the Super Bowl. I've already explained it with Josh Sweat. What is the difference between Josh Sweat at his position and Jalen Hurts at his position? What is the difference?
Well, the quarterback's obviously a larger, more
no. At his position, very good player, Pro Bowl level player, tremendous team success. The whole run of Jalen Hurts is the run of Josh Sweat.
Yeah, but the premise of that, I mean, you talk about premise all the time. That can't be true because the quarterback is just the quarterback has more impact on wins and losses.
I'm not arguing that. I acknowledge. I said, the worst starting quarterback in the league has more impact than the best defensive end.
Okay.
I'm saying his job. What is the difference? He has had tremendous team success. The same team success of Jalen Hurts. He's a very good player. He's topped out as a Pro Bowl level player, a double-digit sack guy. He played at the biggest stage at the highest platform in the Super Bowl phenomenally. Yet I can say, and nobody bats an eye, well, you know what? Myles Garrett, who's done none of that, is a much better player, and everybody's on board. But because it's the quarterback position, because it's what you are talking about, they changed their whole logic, and it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the scale does. A very good player. Does the scale tip a little bit because of that? Like it has. I understand what you're saying. If you isolated it out, yes, 100%. But the scale has to tip a little bit because I also factor in. Jalen's whole body of work. You just talked about 22, when he didn't have Saquon and did lead the team to a Super Bowl. Now he didn't have to do that in 24, but I don't think you can just view it as he's mediocre because of that. I mean, the whole
I never
body
said he was mediocre. I didn't say Josh Sweat was mediocre. They are the same thing because they're very good. But nobody has a problem with me saying Myles Garrett is better than Josh Sweat. Even though Myles Garrett hasn't won a Super Bowl, even though Myles Garrett hasn't gone to 2 Super Bowls, even though Myles Garrett hasn't lifted his team to the same levels of success as Josh Sweat, nobody has a fucking problem with that. You know why? Because they're not obfuscated by the importance of the position. It's obvious. It's obvious Myles Garrett is a better player, but he doesn't have a better situation. It is just as obvious that certain quarterbacks, not a lot, but certain quarterbacks, and I'm not even going to mention names, are better quarterbacks than Jalen Hurts. It is fucking obvious. And if you can't admit that, you're a child and you have no logic. And I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on this commenter.
I do think there are quarterbacks that are better than Jalen Hurts, but I also don't think that talent is everything, and it never has been everything. I mean,
when did I mention the word talent? I said there's better quarterbacks.
Well, what are you saying? When you're saying there's better quarterbacks, what are you talking about? I mean,
they perform their job at a higher level.
They're more talented.
No, they perform their job. You think Peyton Manning is the most talented quarterback who ever lived? You think Tom Brady's the most? You think Joe Montana's the most? You could say it about Aaron Rodgers as those in that conversation when talent mixes with all the other stuff.
This is where I disagree with you, because I actually think it's very fair to say Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, they're more talented than Jalen Hurts, but I'm not necessarily sure they play the position better. You could argue that's one of Jalen's best traits is that he manages the game very well.
Well, I would say if you said that he played the position at a higher level to people in the industry they would chuckle at that, specifically about Joe Burrow. You know, Honest NFL, I bring up who used to work for the Eagles. Just happened to do this, you know, and a couple and people can go look at his Twitter feed at the Honest NFL. Loves the Eagles, loves them to death. For some reason, had nothing to do with this conversation. Obviously, he did it a couple days ago. He broke down how Joe Burrow plays the fucking position. Go watch it. Go watch it. And you'll start to learn why people in the industry have so much respect for the guy, because of what he does on a play-to-play basis, which right now is better than anybody else in the NFL on a play-to-play basis. And I would say it's not close.
Yeah, but can you also admit this? Jalen Hurts is 4 years as a starter. Like, we can't look at him and gauge compared to guys who have had a full career. I mean, what's Jalen going to look like in year 10? He just picked up progressions last year because he had Jason Kelce for the first 3 years of his career.
I was just talking about Joe Burrow. How long has Joe Burrow been in the league? And he was hurt 1 year. Yeah, you know, he came in 2020. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think there's a tipping scale here, though, where people don't.
And we're getting off the original subject.
Which is what? Because I don't even think I said this today. Did I say this today? I don't think I said this.
No,
today.
I was ripping a commenter who can't. And I bring up, look, every other position matters. Nobody wins the Super Bowl. So I got one of these. Jalen Hurts is better than Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and everybody else because he won the Super Bowl. That is childlike logic. I'm sorry. It is. Lamar Jackson, it is. And it doesn't exist with other players. And these people that do this can't see the fallacy of their argument because they don't do it with any other position. It's just quarterback. You can say at any other position that so-and-so is better than so. Yeah.
Well, what would you say about like the 22 season, for example, when it comes to this conversation? Like where I do feel like Jalen had a different role, obviously, in that season. He was asked to be a different quarterback, and to a large extent, he met every metric that he needed to get the team over the top. I mean, he was a fumble away or a penalty away.
Well, he had a much better season in 2022 than.
Well, that's because that's what the team needed him to be. Last year, they didn't need him to be that.
Well, the great ones have that consistency from year to year to year. Like I mean, and by the way, Jalen got a lot better. He started really poorly last season.
Yeah,
really
the first 4 weeks were tough, for sure.
He started really poorly to the point where PFF had him down in the 30s. Like I remember after week 1, he was 32. He's dead last in the NFL. He played so poorly and still won the game. And by the way, I said that's one of his unique traits. He can play poorly and still keep trucking at the end of the game and make a big play here or there, win the game. He's done it consistently throughout his career. I think that's one of his greatest traits because most quarterbacks, if they're playing poorly, that's it, man. They're playing poorly. They don't have it that day. They're not going to drag their team over the finish line. I've said that pretty consistently over the years. Again, people don't want to hear that because it's complimentary. He's got that ability. Very few people have that ability. And I'm talking about in the history of the game that can play poorly, and then just make plays and kill people in the fourth quarter. That is a very rare trait that Jalen Hurts has that very few people have. So people ignore that. But he did not, and by the end, he played a lot better. By the end, he ended up number 12 in the NFL from their grading. And that includes the playoffs because they count the playoffs, and which is more important. And so he was like 16, 17 in the regular season and spiked up to 12. He did. I mean, we did this show every day. I realize the recency bias, but people got to realize he did not have a great regular season. Now, the Eagles built an ecosystem and a team where they could overcome that. And then when it counted most, just like if you want to boil it down, if you want to boil a season down to a game, what I was just talking about, he had the ability to play his best football, really, of the season on the biggest stages. And that skews people's views. Over 17 games plus the playoffs, he was not close to being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL last season. I'm sorry. If people hate that and they want to be lied to, you're muted.
Is that because he didn't play well, or is that because the team legitimately didn't need him to be that big of an impact on every game because they had Saquon on the offensive line?
Well, I don't think that's the way they wanted it to happen. I think that's what they leaned on.
Yeah, but we also talked about, like, once it worked so well, it almost left them with no option.
Nobody wants a top 5 quarterback to not play like a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, but if you have a top 2 running back and a top 3 offensive line that plays so well that
nobody wants a top 5 quarterback. Even if you have the best offense, and they do, and even if you have the best running back, and they did, you don't want your top 5 quarterback to not play like a top 5 quarterback. Nobody.
Yeah, but the only way that would tip the scales is if they were losing games because of Jalen, and they never lost any games because of Jalen.
Well, they didn't lose any games because of anybody. That's another thing. They won 16 out of 7.
No, but my point is, if you said you don't want any quarterback that's top 5 to not play like top 5, I agree, but they didn't lose games because Jalen wasn't playing like a top 5 quarterback. So
they didn't lose games.
He was good enough in the role they wanted him to be to win every game, which is the goal of every game.
They didn't lose games. They didn't lose games when Jordan Mailata didn't play. They didn't lose games when Dallas Goedert didn't play. They didn't lose games when Darius Slay was banged up. They didn't lose games when Nakobe Dean came out. They didn't lose games. They didn't lose games.
Does Jalen not deserve any credit for that?
I don't know how people.
Question. I didn't insinuate anything.
I don't know how
people not deserve credit for that.
I don't. Everybody deserves credit for it. The team deserves credit for it. The team picked each other up. Saquon Barkley had maybe his worst game in the Super Bowl. At least maybe there was one earlier in the season, but certainly in the second half, certainly late in the season, he had his worst game in the Super Bowl. Everybody picked him up. Everybody picked him up. I'm not going to sit here and say, again, I'm not going to sit here and say Saquon Barkley wasn't the best running back in football last season because he played poorly in the Super Bowl. Why would I say that? It's illogical. So why does the opposite ring true? That because
I just think people bolster it up because when they did need Jalen to be the great quarterback last year, he was at every time that they needed him to be.
Which is a great trait, as I said. But that doesn't make him one of the best quarterbacks in football last year.
Well, no, he wasn't because he didn't have to be. I mean, he didn't have. He 2,900 passing. I mean,
I've never met somebody in the NFL in all my years who's got a great quarterback and would use that description, that he doesn't have to be a great quarterback. Nobody thinks that way, including
what about Troy Aikman in the 90s? I mean, he was a great quarterback, but there was times when, he could ride the talent he had around him to wins.
Yeah, but nobody in Dallas thought he was playing at a poor level or a mediocre level.
After week 4, I don't think Jalen played at a poor level last year.
He had played some poor games, but no, I don't think he played at a poor level. He played poor early in the season, but the first
4 games, I agree. Yeah. Which when he didn't I
don't think overall he played at a poor level. But you're going to ask Cilio to ask Jimmy Johnson if he ever thought, that he ever had that frame of mind with Troy Aikman. I can guarantee what the answer is. Well, we didn't need him. I guarantee that's not his answer. But you can have Cilio ask him that question. I mean, I know what he thinks of him. That's just not the framework. And by the way, that's not the framework of the year. That's not their mindset. That's not their mindset. And I'm not trying to say it is. They went down a different direction. And by the way, I said it in the show and it's my own fault for going off this tangent. I said it earlier in this show. I thought it was unfair to Jalen. I thought it was bullshit at the time that they scaled back. I'm like, why are you scaling back? All right.
Yeah, I remember you saying that when it happened.
I'm like, why are you scaling back? He doesn't have AJ Brown. He doesn't have DeMonte Smith. Why are you scaling back? That's bullshit. Now they won, so it's hard to argue it. But I think it was a disservice to the quarterback, to be honest.
What are your expectations for Jalen coming into 25 then?
You
think it's going to be more like 24, 23, 22? It's been very different each year. I can admit that.
I think he plays better than he played last year. I think, can he get to the 2020? And I'm talking again, because people have a very difficult time with this. Can he get back to his 2023 level, or can he get back to his 2022 level, which is phenomenal? Whatever he was, second team.
I'm surprised to hear you say you think he played such a high level in 23, because obviously that season is now jaded because of the
it's jaded from other stuff.
Right.
Like if you gave
but he certainly didn't have his best games, John, at the end of that season. I mean, I remember that playoff game. Jalen was bad. He was bad in that game. That was one of the worst games.
That game was in Tampa, and A, he was banged up. B, no AJ, no Lane. I believe
no Lane in that game either on the playoffs.
I might be conflating that. I know there was no AJ.
I don't remember exactly.
I know there was
AJ wasn't in there.
There was no Reed Blankenship. But again, if you give the 2023 Jalen Hurts, and I'm going to look up the PFF rank. I don't have them in front. I'll look them up in a second. But if you gave the 2023 Jalen Hurts the number one defense in the NFL, I think the whole world changes. The whole mentality, the whole thing shifts. But he understands it. Everybody understands it. Nick understands it as a coach. He understands it as a quarterback. If you don't win, it's been around forever. If you're the coach, if you're the quarterback, you're going to get more credit if you win than you deserve. And you're going to get more blame than you deserve if you lose. It's no secret.
What does Jalen need to do better, in your opinion, to play the position? I'm not talking about talent, like you said a little earlier in this segment. To play the position, you said Joe Burrow plays the position way better. What does Jalen have to do to meet that or get closer? Well,
I encourage everybody to look at Tom's explanation. Get your offense into the best positions you can, play to play. And that's the constant measurement. That's how Tom Brady and Peyton Manning measured themselves. Did I get my team in the best position to succeed?
See, I struggle with that, John, because I feel like he did that last year. Like, I know it wasn't asking
but first of all, again, everybody's complaining because I'm comparing him to the best quarterback in the game right now at this moment, who does it better than anybody else. And to say that he doesn't do it as well as him is not an insult. Doesn't mean he does it poorly. But as far as 2021, 14 of 37, 2022, 4th of 39, 2023, 8th of 38, 2024 last season, 12th of 42, spiked by the playoffs. Very good player. Very, very good player. Last season, personally, overall, all 20, how many games have I? 20 games, 21 games. Over all 21 games, it was his third best season as the Philadelphia Eagles starter from an individual standpoint.
Yeah, but
2022 was his best. 2023 was the second best. I would put last season. And by the way, he was below before the playoffs started than his rookie season as a starter.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got BLG, so I don't want to get into it. But this is the part of it. I agree with a lot of what you said, but this is the part of it I don't agree with, because I just feel like he did get the team into the right place last year. Now, it didn't ask him to be the star of it, but The team was so damn successful last year that I have a hard time arguing that he didn't get the team into the right place for much of the year. Now, there was instances, obviously. There's instances in
The
every
offense
year.
we complained about the offense all fucking year.
Yeah, but they had 2,500 rushing yards. So
we didn't complain about the running back. We complained about the offense.
Yeah, but the right plays for the offense last year were to run the damn ball.
Yeah, I'm swimming upstream on this one.
Yeah,
I'm
not acting like what you're saying is crazy. I just think that there's
the quarterback himself, the wide receiver, the all-pro left tackle, the Hall of Fame right tackle, Devontae Smith, add him into the mix. Everybody said it. Not just John McMullen. We got to bring BLG up. He can confirm it. Everybody said it. Everybody had a problem with this passing game. Everybody. Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore, everybody, including the quarterback.
Onward, let's get the BLG. Brandon Lee Gowan joining us now here on Birds 365 from Bleeding Green Nation. Go check him out at bleedinggreennation.com and follow him on X and his social platforms at Brandon Gowan. BLG, how you doing, brother? Big schedule release Wednesday of the NFL offseason.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it looks like after all these leaks.
Happy Logistics Day, BLG. What's your favorite part of this? Is it the leaks or is it the nonsense that you can't find a Sunday game on this freaking schedule? There's too many. The NFL's got to scale this back. They got 4 games. None of them are on Sunday.
Yeah, I guess my favorite part is kind of just seeing, when they don't play on Sundays in some ways because of then you have the weekend, to watch the rest of the games. That's always a good time. That's the trade-off.
I like the optimism.
That's the optimistic spin. The point is taken, though, and especially, the good thing is, for you and me, John, a couple of these games, like the Saturday, we'll see on the Saturday game, I guess the timing, but the Black Friday game, it's obviously during the day, so at least it's not like one of these 8:30 kind of starts where you have a bunch of those like the Eagles did in 2023. And it kind of starts to feel pretty brutal by the end of the season.
Is
all these
Black
late
Friday
games.
a day that people traditionally have off? Like I feel like 3:00 on a Friday is just not an ideal time to air a football game. But hey, maybe I'm wrong.
I think it really depends. Yeah, my dad didn't growing up, but I feel like a lot of people.
Well,
do.
I think if you're in retail, that's the whole point. It's Black Friday. You got to work. Most people have off, but. Yeah. I mean,
we don't. I'll tell you that much. We'll be working, folks.
It's funny when you look at just how many TV and streaming partners the NFL has now. It's unbelievable. And how many people want to buy individual games. What Netflix does for the Christmas games, what Amazon does for the Black Friday game. Now you have YouTube getting the Brazil game. On and on and on. They keep adding this. I got to say, though, BLG, I think a rare criticism of the NFL, they got like 3 tier 1 teams, and one of them's the Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, obviously, Kansas City Chiefs. They got to start pushing more of these teams, don't you think? A little bit? Everything's Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys.
I think we're seeing the Commanders get a little more, certainly more attention than they used to, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think some of that's the league, obviously.
I think it's the TV people fighting for their games,
right? Yeah, the bigger ecosystem here. But a lot of it's the teams too, and they kind of. You have to earn that to some extent, although I would say the Cowboys really have not, other than just the legacy of the brand. But
yeah. For that,
BLG, what do you think of the 4 that we got so far? You got the Cowboys in the opener, BLG. What do you think of that banner drop in front of Jerry Jones?
Yeah, I think it's really strange that there's any sentiment out there like that isn't in favor of this. That's weird to me because this hasn't happened in 25 years. Like, how long were we going to go without an Eagles-Cowboys Week 1 matchup? It should happen at some point. I feel like at least a quarter of a century. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to see there, especially given the context of how we've seen so many Eagles-Cowboys games in recent years just not even mean anything, either because it's booked late in the so late in the year that one team or maybe both teams doesn't have anything to play for. Or obviously the Dak and Jalen Hurts like injury situations where they've only played 3 out of the 9
crazy,
times.
By the way,
Like,
that's great. They never play each other.
Yeah. And that's like, why don't we? So to me, it's been crazy why we haven't been seeing this sooner. Like, why not try to virtually guarantee you at least get one of those? Obviously, there could be a training camp injury. That seems much less likely than, you know, a regular season injury. So it was about time for them to finally schedule this matchup.
And we don't know yet, but I look at that Washington game late. So that's the Fox game you were mentioning. It's a Saturday game. We don't have the time yet, but that's week 16, December 20th. Now, in theory, they've had 2 of 3 late in the season, but in theory, you would think, well, that means that's the second game of the home and home, and it's going to be in Landover. And if things shake out the way we think they're going to shake out, at least most of us, and it's going to be Eagles or Commanders for the division, that's a little bit difficult to have the game down there so late as opposed to having it in Philadelphia late.
That's when they played them last year, right?
Yeah,
week 16.
Later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think generally, you know, there's good friend Jimmy Kemsky is a big proponent of the theory that you want to play that in theory, like more tough teams later in the year in the event that, you know, there are injuries that kind of pile up and kind of change their outlook from what they could be later in the year than what it seems to be early in the year. I don't always believe that, but I think it's an interesting point worth considering. So if you want to look at it from the I'm really just spinning everything optimistic today.
Well, you're optimistic. I like it. You're optimistic. I got that theory similar to Jimmy, but I say at the start of the season, you don't want to play bad teams at the start of the season. I don't like that when they have hope and optimism and verve and they're excited, and then by week say 5 or 6 they know, oh, we suck again, and they kind of. I don't want to play those teams where they could jump up and maybe hurt you early in the season. That's always been my theory. Back when they started the season in Detroit before the Lions became the Lions that they are now, they were terrible. I think they were, Campbell was like 0-10 the year prior. And I remember doing the show with Jody back then. I said, this is going to be tough. Detroit's a tough place to play. And those people are going to be fired up for week 1. And they were fired up and it was loud. And the Eagles persevered, but it was a really difficult game. It was a really, really difficult game. So that's always been my thought process with the schedule. I don't want bad teams. I don't want bad teams early because they have hope. And they do have BLG level optimism early in the season. Whereas if you beat them down, then they're going to be, you can just walk over them. Anyway, I just throw that out. Themes of the schedule. That's what I look at. So 3-game road trips, travel, logistics. It doesn't look like the Eagles are going to have much bad travel. So, but I'll also say this, and I want to throw this at you. If you're good, like the Eagles were last year, nothing matters. You just win. You win 16-17. Nothing matters. It only matters if they come back to the pack. Agree or disagree?
I think just the virtue of their schedule, not just because they won the division in the first place, but just because also how it lines up with, like, you have to play the AFC West this year. And it's probably a pretty good division there. Some of it just luck of the draw. And also kind of like how, in 2023, really difficult. Last year, not as much. And not even just talking about the opponents, but also like the structure in terms of they got hosed in 2023. And that was, I think, an underrated part of the collapse where they had to play,
well, the irony is they beat all the good teams, though.
Yeah, but I think it weighed on them so much that they just ran out of gas, man.
Well, right when it started to tilt is where the schedule, I think, kind of got ridiculous in terms of they had to play the 49ers, where the Eagles, the 49ers were coming off of extra rest, having played on the Thursday before. And then they had to do the same thing next week against the Cowboys. Same situation. Like, they kind of were at this big rest disadvantage. Oh, and they played that overtime game against Buffalo. So they played even more than they usually would in a given week. And it all kind of stacked up there. So last year, by contrast, like I think they didn't have to play any team coming off of Thursday Night Football. They didn't have to play any team coming off. Like there wasn't a team I think that had like a bye week, right before they played them. If I'm not mistaken, so they had that's one of the big things I like to look at, is the rest advantage and disadvantage. And the Eagles really didn't have much of a rest disadvantage going on last year, but just because how the schedule works, they're probably going to have more of that this year.
What about the creatures of habit type thing? We all know football players, coaches even more so, but they want a Sunday to Sunday schedule. And Wednesday practice, Thursday, Friday practice, walkthrough game. We just talked about the first 4 games that we know of that we speak of right now that are confirmed. None of them are on Sunday. You got Thursday, you got Friday, you got Saturday, you got Monday. That means Nick Sirianni's got, when people ask, what does Nick Sirianni do as head coach? Well, that's one of the big things, logistics and setting up practice, making sure everything's done on these weird weeks. Kansas City has had that over the past number of years and done a good job handling it. I don't think the Eagles handled the last Super Bowl that well. Really, even the last 2, the one they lost as well, didn't come back and handle it as well. Are you concerned about that at all?
I would think that they've been through it, like you said, they will have more to kind of draw on from both experiences, winning it. Obviously, a lot of those people who were there aren't still here, but some of them are. And also a good number are from a couple years ago when they lost. So I do think, having lived through it, that can maybe help somewhat. But I think the reality is just like, it's already hard enough to win the Super Bowl. Like, let alone repeat it. Like, that's just such a hard thing to do. And I think the NFL is not even, I know the NFL is designed. The NFL is designed to pull you towards the middle. If you're good, they want to bring you down. If you're bad, they want to bring you up. That's just how the league is structured. So, like, they could do everything right in theory, and it still might not be good enough. Just because, again, I always say, like, we talk about repeat, and I'm not going to say that's not on the table, but how about repeating as division champions first? Like, that hasn't happened in 20 years. 20 so, like, years. Even doing that would be this massive accomplishment just by virtue of it hasn't happened in so long.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point, BLJ. Coming into this season, you do have this hard schedule now. The one thing I don't like about the strength of schedule, BLJ, is like it's all off last year. And as you just talked about, the parity in the league, it changes so much from year to year. But you certainly do have a lot of playoff teams this year. How do you gauge the NFC East coming into this year, BLJ? You got the Cowboys week 1, you got the Commanders. I think it was week 16 with them. What do you think of those? What do you think of those games? Because I think you're going to have tougher in division games this year too.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think barring any kind of like quarterback injuries here, massive injuries, I don't think like any of these teams are picking top 5. I think they've all gotten better to some extent. I don't think like the Giants are suddenly contenders, but I think they're competent at least a little bit more than they've been in a bit for sure. I think the Commanders. There's a chance that Jaden Daniels is even better in year 2. I think they might take a little bit of a step back. Doesn't mean they're going to be bad, but just think because they were as good as they were last year, there could be some drawbacks like we saw from the Texans, a couple years ago there. And then the Cowboys, kind of an interesting team in terms of if Dak's healthy, usually they're right there in the mix to win the division, but he was playing poorly before he got hurt last year.
Yeah, he was.
And also when you look at their win loss over under, it's like 7.5. That's pretty low. Like, I feel like that should be a red flag. I don't think that's like Vegas isn't dumb. I don't think that's just like, oh, they're overreacting to how bad they were last year. I think that's like, maybe pump the brakes on this team. And also, by the way, it's Brian Schottenheimer. Like, I feel like that's kind of just gotten glossed over. I feel like Cowboys fans have talked themselves into this in a big time kind of cope way. But like,
to your point, by the way, I mentioned this. Usually national people, Vegas people are going to give the Cowboys, because of their status and their brand, the benefit of the doubt. So that's even worse. They're usually expected to be a little bit better than they really are. So that might even be more of a red flag to your point. And maybe it's about, Dak's going to be 32
Mhm.
with a ton of injuries.
Yeah.
Maybe, and as you mentioned, he was not playing well before the injury last year. So maybe the downtick is going to continue, and that would be a positive for the Eagles. But I still think he's going to be better than Cooper Rush.
Yes, of course.
So there's going to be some improvement. But overall, when I look at the schedule, here's the biggest thing. And this is just logistics day. That's it. We're getting dates and times. We already knew the opponents. So it's not as big as a deal as it used to be, but the first place schedule. So you're talking about 3 games. You're talking about conference opponents, 2 conference opponents based on divisional placement. And you get first place LA Rams, first place Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then your interconference, the extra game opponent, which is on the road, because that toggles back and forth year to year. And that's first place Buffalo. That's those 3 games. That's tough. That's difficult. And we'll see how they measures up. But if you talked about that murderer's row a couple of years ago coming off the Super Bowl. If you got one of those stretches, because you got a lot of good teams on this schedule, that's something to keep an eye on, because the opponents look difficult.
I think the away games, especially, now we know the Eagles typically do pretty well on the road, and then the fans travel and they seem to have success for whatever reason, us against the world mentality. But you're going to Lambeau, where the Eagles, beat the Packers twice last year, and there's kind of some beef there, some tension there.
It's going to be the Tush Push Bowl. They're going to gaslight people.
Minnesota, obviously not like maybe the most warm welcome place for Eagles fans. Kansas City, Tampa Bay, where the Eagles have had struggles in recent years, especially Buffalo, as you just mentioned, in Buffalo. Those are some tough places to play. In addition to being like good teams, I think those are especially challenging stadiums to be in.
We got a Jordan Schultz alert. Super Bowl rematch, Eagles Chiefs, week 2 in Kansas City. Kickoff 4:25.
Week 2. That's nice and early.
A Sunday game.
Yeah, we get a Sunday game now. That's something.
Wait, what time is it, John? Was it night or 4:25?
4:25
okay.
On Fox. So I'm surprised that CBS didn't fight for that one, but Fox gets it. Eagles Chiefs week 2 in Kansas City, rematch of the Super Bowl. That's a big one.
I'm going to guess this game will be a little bit more competitive than the Super Bowl.
It's got to be I'm going to predict. Here's going to be my guarantee: the Chiefs cross midfield before their 10th drive.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet, John. Although I don't know how good the Chiefs are going to be this year.
I think the Chiefs are not as good. I think the Eagles exposed the Chiefs a little bit. Now, not everybody's capable of doing that, but I think they're going to take a little bit of a downturn this year. And I think it starts. I'm going to pick the Eagles right now. That's a win. That's a win.
Go. It's a win. I love it, Johnny Mac. Our first, it's a win. BLG, you gonna ride Johnny Mac's coattails and take the Eagles as a win?
I'm gonna say no. It's gonna be the inverse, because the inverse of the last Super Bowl.
What happened to optimistic BLG?
I know.
I always get criticism for being too negative.
Well, it's going to be the inverse of the last Super Bowl, where like the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but the Eagles won the regular season rematch. I think it's going to be the reverse this time.
All right, you probably heard some of what was coming on. So I want you to save me or don't save me. I want you to grade in order Jalen Hurts' seasons as a starting quarterback, the entire season, from week 1 to either Super Bowl champions or bowing out in the playoffs. Rank those seasons from his rookie season as a starter, his second season. So what are we talking about? 21, 22, 23, 24.
I think I'm going 22, 20, 24, 21, 23.
See, I think
kind of where I am. I would put 23 before 21.
You'd put 2021 over 2023. Now, I'm not surprised you put 2024 over 20 because of the collapse. But I think Jalen played damn well in 2023.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here to make sure I'm not messing this up too much. Yeah, I think that's close though. I think it's those. Yeah, I think it's kind of like if you're doing it by tier. I think 2022 is clear tier 1. There's then the next tier you're looking at 2024, and then because of the playoffs are weighted so much too. And then I'm putting in tier 3. I'll go 2023 over 2021, but those are in the same tier to me.
All right. So we only differ. I put 2023 above 2024 overall. I think he played better. I think the team played better, much, much better, obviously, during the Super Bowl season. But I think individually, I think Jalen Hurts played damn well in 2023 and was let down by a poor defense. And some coaching issues and all that kind of stuff. But we know what happened with the collapse. But yeah, I know I'm swimming upstream because you win the Super Bowl, man. I get my Josh Sweat comparison. Have I given that to you, PLG? My Josh Sweat theory?
I'm not sure.
Well, like I can say that Myles Garrett is better than Josh Sweat, and you'll say, yeah, duh. But I mean, if you look at just the job, Josh Sweat has been the same run as Jalen Hurts as far as team success. He goes to 2 Super Bowls. He wins 1. He plays at a high level. You could argue he should have been MVP of the Super Bowl. He's played at a Pro Bowl level, topped out, double-digit sack season. But nobody has a problem with me saying Myles Garrett, who has had no Super Bowls, no team success because he plays with a bunch of shit for a shit organization, but everybody knows how good he is as a player. Of course, Myles Garrett is better. But if you do that, if you use that same logic at the quarterback position, people lose their mind. Like, I think Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts, but he hasn't won a Super Bowl. He's with a shitty organization that can't even, Trey Hendrickson is complaining on the sidelines of minicamp because they're so cheap, and he's got to come in to rip the organization. But he's a better player. Am I insane to think that way?
I don't think it's insane when you look at a guy who had almost 5,000 yards and 43 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year and had this horrible defense. If you give, Joe Burrow the Eagles defense last year, I think that'd be a really good team. I do think it's hard to weigh regular season and postseason in terms of how things get discussed because I've been a very long time critic here of Lamar Jackson, who I think is legitimately maybe or at least one of the best regular season players of all time. But undeniably, you look at his postseason numbers and you look at relative to expectation too, the spread and everything. He's been an underperformer in the postseason, undeniably. And it's weird to me every year when, people are making all these Super Bowl picks. Ravens are going to do it. This is the year. It's why would you think that? Because he doesn't get over the hump in the playoffs. And then to a lesser extent, Dak is kind of the same thing. Obviously not as much of a regular season player, but so if I have to look at the inverse of that, then I have to give if I'm that's the stance I'm going to take here. I can't then be hypocritical and say it doesn't matter. When Jalen Hurts steps up in these games in the biggest moments, which he has done, so I give him credit for that. But I do think, to your point, John, we look at the championship game, we look at the Super Bowl where he's excellent. The Packers game, the Rams game, those are some brutal games there. Those are some of the statistically, not even opinion based, some of the worst passing performances we've seen from a team that has won in the playoffs. So there were times certainly where Jalen Hurts got a lot of help, and ultimately he took advantage of that and was able to survive in advance and then light it up when the games counted the most. And
by the way, there's nothing wrong with getting help. There's never been, Nick Sirianni said this, and I agree with him 100%. There's never been a quarterback to win a Super Bowl without a good supporting cast, ever, in the history of football. It's not going to happen because it's a team game. That's another thing he always says, the ultimate team game. There's other people out there. The defense didn't allow Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid an Andy Reid coach team to cross midfield for 9 drives. I think they contributed to a Super Bowl championship. And to that end, as you brought up with Joe Burrow, BLG, what a terrible defense he had last year. That's exactly what happened to Jalen Hurts in 2023. He played at a high level and had a shitty defense. And they collapsed. I don't blame Jalen Hurts for that. I thought he played at a pretty high level, at a higher level that year than he did last season. But I know I'm swimming upstream.
BLG, what do you think he's got to do in 25?
Well, the difference, I would say, the turnovers were just such a big factor in 2023. And maybe those aren't all on him when you look at his career.
Yeah.
That's the aberration. And that was obviously very informative of how he played and how the Eagles wanted him to play in 2024, was just like eliminate those. Because if you take those out, he didn't even need to be amazing. As long as you just weren't turning it over, you could play this kind of way.
Yeah, he definitely. I remember the Jets game. Like that was I think the worst turnover of his career.
Yeah,
because the game was over. That was just. So you have to look at him individually. That was just one of the worst turnovers I've ever seen.
Right.
But at times when you're struggling, and when you're behind, and when your defense is struggling, you do have to take more chances.
Sure.
So that's going to lead to. So it's like a give and take.
Yeah.
The Seattle game as well. They took a chance.
Right.
Probably shouldn't have. But so yeah, that's part of it. But hey, if you're behind, you're gonna commit more turnovers. That's just part of it.
In terms of what he needs to do this year, I mean, again, I think he's just going to have to naturally take on more volume, because I don't think Saquon is going to be literally the best running back in NFL history kind of season again. I really want to look at the numbers of the players who've had all these touches like he did. He had the 9th most touches ever for a running back in a season. And, you're expecting some kind of fall off. It might not even be that much. Who knows? Because he's awesome. Maybe he's somehow even better, because no one thought he was going to be as good as he was. I don't think that's the most likely thing. I think everyone would agree. So I just think he's going to have to take on more volume. Might not be over the course of the season, consistently week over week. It might be certain games, certain moments. But I just think that they're going to need to have more answers in the passing game. That's the way I'll put it, than they did last year.
I think that's fair. BLJ, you excited to do the win? It's a win. It's a loss coming up on Bleeding Green Nation after the schedule releases.
100%. I can't say like, oh, I'm the best at this, but last year, just looking through, I had 13-4, and I was like, man, I was surprised how high that was, because I was like, I'm not even feeling like, I wasn't even feeling like 2023 was a blip on the radar, sweep it under the rug. Eagles are totally going to be back in full. That's not how I felt about the team, like in general. But looking at the schedule, by game, I was like, this is where I end up, 13-4, and I was like, that sounds too optimistic. But then turns out it wasn't even optimistic enough. So yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I think I was at 12. Was I at 12? But I went back to 11.
Yeah, you were 12 and you went back to 11, John. Yep.
Yeah. Because we do this exercise. If you have to go up one game or down one game, what would you do? So I was at 12, and if forced to go up or down, I went down. So as usual, I'm wrong. But the Eagles outperformed that. That's why it's good to be optimistic like BLG. We're going to see how optimistic you are. Bleeding Green Nation, we'll check that out. Make sure you guys all visit the site. BLG does a tremendous job there. At Brandon Gouton on the X platform. Chiefs already going negative on us on week 2. The Super Bowl rematch Chiefs. Boy, I'm starting to talk. You might have talked me out of it. When I get to my official.
Oh, you're kidding me. You're flaking already, John?
Yeah,
you make
BLG,
one prediction. BLG, you got to flake already.
BLG just told me how successful he was last year.
Right.
So now I have to weigh that information into
That's right.
BLG, I got one more question for you. Was the NBA lottery rigged the other night?
I mean, I think could not be more transparent of a favorable outcome of what I was out. The only thing I'll say, or the only thing I know for sure, is like I felt stupid for not thinking the Mavs were going to win the whole time. I'm like, oh yeah, of course they were going to win.
I think you've been gaslighted.
I'm with
I
you,
mean,
BLJ.
John
there's
thinks we're
crazy, but I'm
there's
with
so
you.
many people in the room. Yeah,
I
There's
don't
so many
know.
people. There's
But
so many. There's reporters. I mean, they got to be in on it now. They let them in the room. Yeah, sometimes what was it, 1.9%? Sometimes 1.9%. You know what probability means? There's a 1.9% chance of it happening, and it happens. But here's the other part, BLG. If Cooper Flagg, I read some guy, same guy. Yeah. I don't want to rip him, but same guy, say whoever gets Cooper Flagg, is that his name? Yeah, yep. Cooper Flagg. Their valuation of their franchise is going up to a $500 million up to $1 billion. So if that's the case, and then the same guy said it was a conspiracy to get him in Dallas, why the F would they want that guy in Dallas? That's the guy they want with the Lakers or Boston or Chicago or New York. They don't want him in
but it's
Dallas.
Still a lottery ticket, because he's a draft pick. You don't know for sure. That would be like saying,
they're gimmicking it that they know for sure. That's why he's contradicting himself. They don't want him in Dallas.
Even if it's not rigged, it's just a bad feeling. It's a bad feeling to see.
I'm with you, BLJ. It is a bad feeling for sure. We'll see what happens. We'll see who the Sixers take at number 3. BLJ, thanks for doing it, brother. We appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, bud.
All right, see you. There's BLJ joining us here on Birds 365. Great show today, Johnny Mac. It's schedule release day. Comes out at 8 p.m. Eastern. We already got, what are we up to now? 5 official games?
Yeah, 5 official games and no 1 o'clock games yet. That's what I'm rooting for.
We're not getting many of them, John. I'm going to say 4.
But at least we got a Sunday game.
I'm going to say 4. Does 4 sound right or too little for 1 o'clocks?
Boy, man. I mean, I it's hard to keep up with their stupid scheduling rules. Like that, there's 6 primetime games, but you can be flexed out. So I don't know. That seems high to me. 4. I mean, everybody wants them. Everybody wants them.
Yeah, it's true.
And if they at the bare minimum, they want the 4 o'clock window. They don't want the 1 o'clock window. So, but we'll see. I hope there's a couple. I hope there's more than that, but I don't see it happening.
I think the controversial nature of the team, too, also brings in more viewers. Like simply the conversation we had 30 minutes ago before BLJ with the quarterback. I think that happens all over the NFL world, and people like it.
I don't think it's controversial. It shouldn't be controversial.
Well, it is, though. I mean, whether you want it to be or not,
I think it's the passion of the fan base. Like they just want their guy to be the best. I mean, which I get from a fan perspective.
And they feel justified. Johnny did lead them to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, so you have to understand that the slant is there from that perspective as well.
Well, yeah, but that's the non-objective fan base stance because, again, when you win, and it's a cliche for a reason. Winning cures all ills.
Right. I got you.
You forget all the games. I mean, he didn't play as BLG pointed out, he didn't play well against Green Bay.
No, he did. That playoff game. Brady said on the broadcast at the end of that game in the 4th quarter with a couple minutes left, the Eagles are going to have to get this passing game going if they want to go to the Super Bowl.
Like these same people attacking me. I'm sorry, but these same people attacking me, and they do it viciously, by the way, but feel free, whatever. It's part of the job. Would be 180 incensed if they bowed out against the Rams at the quarterback that they did defend, I would argue mindlessly, they would be so incensed at the way he played. You couldn't control the anger, but it's forgotten because winning cures all evil. And I get it. I mean, they're not the only ones. But we can go back. I mean, I've been forced to explain to people why Carson Wentz was better than Nick Foles, why Tom Brady's better than Nick Foles. I've been not a lot, but some Eagles fans, because Nick Foles beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
I don't know, man. Carson Wentz. Do people forget how good he was when he was good here?
Yes, the answer is yes.
When he was good, he was fucking good, man. He was crazy
The answer
good.
is yes. People forget how good he was that season.
That season was crazy, man.
Yeah. But if you say that to somebody outside of Philadelphia, that you dare say that Tom Brady's better than Nick Foles, even after losing the Super Bowl, barely a blip. Here, you got some people who will still argue that to this day, which is completely illogical.
Yeah, I got you. John, the Eagles Chiefs week 2. I know it broke. We talked about it with BLG, but just your final thoughts on that. 425 on Fox. I thought CBS would get it after talking to Kerr, but that's a big rematch. And I'm kind of with you. I don't know what the Chiefs are going to be this year. I think this is the first year that they could really come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I think Kelsey's got one foot out the door. I think he started to show some. He was down a descending player. Patrick is still Patrick, but you see these little glimpses of you talk about his 2 Super Bowl losses, but probably his 2 worst games ever against the Eagles and against Tampa. You see some, maybe slowing down at least.
Yeah.
But he's still going to be good. Don't get me wrong, but who knows? That Eagles defensive performance might have shaken him a little bit because he didn't have any answers.
No, he didn't at all.
Yeah, obviously big game. Right now, I'm down on the Chiefs, probably for the same reason. So I'm breaking my own rule because I saw them playing the Super Bowl and they were freaking destroyed.
Yeah, but they were showing cracks and they just kept overcoming them. I mean,
it's interesting. A lot of people made the comparison to the 10-1 Eagles collapsing, but they did it in season. Like Chiefs were not that good, but they kept winning games, and they went all the way to the Super Bowl before it showed up.
Yeah, and we'll remember the year prior too when they won versus the
Well,
Niners.
yeah, they were much worse the year prior when they won.
They didn't even look like a Super Bowl contender, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been going on for a while. And yeah, I think they're a team on the downswing, but I don't think their division is as good as other people think it is. But like that's the one part of the Eagles schedule that AFC West, because I've heard that BLG just said it. AFC West is going to be good. Is it? I don't know. I think the Raiders still stink.
Raiders definitely. I don't know. Well, here's the thing. It depends on Geno because they did get some decent skill position.
Oh, they got better. Yeah, I mean,
Geno's better. I'm with you though. I don't think they're going to be like a contender in the NFL.
Yeah, Geno's a hell of a lot better than what they had at quarterback. The Chargers are a team that should be better than they are, but aren't. Harbaugh's getting them a little bit better. I think people are skipping steps on Bo Nix and Denver.
I'm with you on that. What do you think of Herbert?
I love Herbert, but
I know he's got the talent, but I mean, I don't know if he does the other stuff well.
I mean, part of it is that Harbaugh's so conservative. I don't know if they're going to maximize what they have, but and they drafted Hampton, so they're probably going to go even more run heavy. So maybe it turns into an Eagles situation where you're saying the quarterback doesn't look as good, but they're winning games. So maybe it works out that way for them. But I don't look at them as a Super Bowl contender. I just think that division's a little bit overrated.
I agree. We'll see how it all shakes out. John, I'll tell you this, though, man. Those first 2 games, the Eagles have a chance to make a statement and beat the Cowboys and the Chiefs.
Oh, they're beating the Cowboys. Now, BLG's got
they got a chance to have everybody question how good they're going to be. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Boy, no, they're not. They're too good to go.
You really think the Cowboys stink, don't you?
I think they're well below the Eagles.
Well, you don't think that. I mean, you basically. But
I don't think they stink. I think they're.
You're not giving them much of a chance in week 1.
I think they're mediocre. I think they're a mediocre team. but
What did you say about
mediocre.
getting mediocre teams early, though, John. They
Well,
got
yeah,
all this confidence.
I don't like that part of it. But I think nowadays, if you're mediocre and a couple things go right, you're in the final wild card spot situation, and that's where I think they'll be. They'll be in the conversation for that. But yeah, I don't. That's a bad spot for the Cowboys. I don't like that spot. Kansas City week 2. A lot of people are going to pick Kansas City. I know that, but I just think they're not as good. But then again, I don't think. I'm already wavering. We don't even have the full schedule, and I'm already wavering. I don't think the Eagles are as good. So I think both of the Super Bowl teams have taken a step back, at least to a certain extent.
We'll see how it all shakes out. Johnny Mac, catch you later on, brother. We might talk to you for 10 minutes tops after the schedule releases, but we're not doing any win-loss predictions till tomorrow on Birds.
That's a win.
So tune in tomorrow for Birds 365. Johnny Mac, thank you, brother. Talk to you later on.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Sorry
Absolutely.
about the quarterback takes.
Don't apologize, John. You got to be yourself. Thank you, brother. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen here on Birds 365. Great job by J Mac. Make sure you follow him at JF McMullen. Give me a follow at Real Zander as well. Good show today. I didn't really follow all of what John was saying about the quarterback. I think he's splitting hairs like to a major extent, kind of trying to justify why Jalen isn't this or that. And I'm like, dude, they fucking keep winning. I mean, how do you gauge whether the quarterback is getting him into the right play when you keep winning? If you keep winning, you are getting your offense into the right play, in my estimation. Am I wrong on that? I don't know. Somebody who's objective, give me Bob Brown or somebody who's super objective. Give me a take on that, because while I don't disagree with everything John said, I have a hard time, with he didn't get the team into the right play. Why? Because it was a running play? I mean, that fucking team won every game. The offense dominated large portion of games. Is that not getting them into the right play? I mean, I don't know. I thought that part of it was a little bit off, but I got some super chats I got to get to. I apologize. I didn't read these to John. I completely forgot about them. That's my bad, man. Damn. Sorry about that, guys. Anwan says, we get to see Cowboys season end on a full stomach. Thanksgiving Day. Is that what you're talking about, Anwan? They playing the Chiefs on Thanksgiving? Yeah, I'll be sitting back because we got the Black Friday game. So I'll be prepping for the game, but I'll be sitting back with a full stomach watching that for sure, my brother. Anwan, again, thank you, bro. Eagles travel to G-Men on Thursday Night Football Week 6 leaks. Let's see if that's true. I didn't see that confirmed yet. All right. Let's see if that's true. All right. Tom Coons is a fake name for sure. Says, at least John ain't hyping up the Cowboys like Xander is. I didn't hype up the Cowboys. I said they're not going to be trash. I'm saying they're going to be trash. If that bothers you so much, Coons, then all right, go watch a new show. I don't give a shit, bro. Fuck. Suo checks in. Curious about the bye week, not get stiffed like 24. Well, Suo, it worked out in 24, brother. Worked out big time in 24. Dank Bird Gang says, last time we had the Chiefs week 2, we won the Super Bowl repeat season. I remember what Dank is talking about. 2017. I think we started that year versus the then Redskins, the Commanders now. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the game that Carson Wentz was rolling like crazy, and he launched the ball downfield to Nelson Aguilar for like a big 60-yard touchdown. If I remember correctly, that was the opener. And then you played the Chiefs, and they lost to the Chiefs in week 2. That was a pretty good one, though. Good pull there, Dank Bird Game. We won the Super Bowl that year. That is correct. Midnight Lexicon. Will we see Jalen return to MVP form in his career? I think so, Midnight. I think so. I don't think we had to worry about, or I don't think we had to last year, So let's see how the team develops. Let's see again. Lexicon, people are judging Jalen Hurts right now like he's a 15-year career. It's 4 years. It's 4 freaking years. All right. 4 years. That's not a long time. Like, let's see how Jalen, handles different situations that will continue to inevitably show up in his career. I have a hard time saying, oh, we can't do this because it's been 4 years. Relax. All right. If we judged, any great quarterback after 4 years, we'd have a lot different take. Twiz, he does not have the same government name as you. Look at what he put at the end. Look at what he added you. He's using bullshit language and stuff. He's a fakey Twiz. Honestly, one of the mods could block him out. I don't like people faking as another fakey, using shitty words like that, racist terms. I don't like that shit. I try and give everybody a chance to speak in here, whether you're a lover or a hater, but people get stupid. Samuel checking in. What's up, Samuel? He says, Zander, I see handing off the Barkley could be seen as getting it to the right player, that the right play. And if Jalen was always looking to make the right play, he wouldn't have taken as many sacks. That's fair, Samuel. That's fair. But you get to it. I mean, listen, you got to a lot of handoffs. And look, people will hold that against Jalen. I don't hold that against Jalen. I mean, you handed it off to Saquon Barkley. It does look like the Giants week 6. Is that what we're looking at? I'm good with that, Leon. I don't know how good the Giants are going to be. I will say this. I do think they got a lot better. Their defensive line is legitimate. All right. It's fair to say that the Giants defensive line is legitimate. Twiz, I was going to let him rock too until I saw what he's commenting at the end. Look at what he added you. He clearly didn't call you Twiz the Jigga. So, you can go and read that. I'm not a fan of that shit, obviously. So, like to block him out. But we got a good schedule. I mean, look, we got a tough schedule this year, without a doubt. We got a tough schedule. I think the Giants are going to be maybe half decent. I don't know. What do you guys think of Jackson Dart? You guys think Jackson Dart will be something? I think Jackson Dart has a chance. I was out on him pre-draft, but admittedly, I didn't watch enough of him to be out on him. All right. Ooh, Dominique says, Zander, Commanders, Giants, week 1. Who you got? I think Giants upset I don't know, man. Well, Dabney, here's what I like about it from a Giant. If you're gonna say Giants upset, I like it from the perspective of that defensive line could make life real hard on Jaden Daniels. I mean, people keep telling me they've improved their offensive line in Washington, and they have. They've gotten better players, but Laramie Tunsil, how old is Laramie Tunsil? Let me look that up real quick. I know he's in his 30s. He's got to be in his 30s. He's 30 years old. All right, so he'll turn 31 in August. So he'll be 31 at the start of the season. Then you got Josh Connerly. Josh Connerly is a rookie. Let's see. T-Dog's taking shots. Let's see what he has to say about me. Zander is a good example of just because you went to college doesn't mean you can't still be an idiot. I dropped out of college, so you can take that comment and shove it up your own ass, T-Dog. Again, I love when people put me in a box. T-Dog, take it and shove it up your own ass, dork. And by the way, keep enjoying the show, big guy. All right? Just because Zander went to college, I'm T-Dog. My take on the world is the only take on the world. Shut up. Dweeb. That's why you talk with an anonymous account with an anonymous picture. Because you're too stupid to put your name on anything. All right, everybody. Great show. Yesterday, it's been, for anybody that lives in the area, it's been shitty ass weather. Real shitty. Like majorly shitty. I mean, I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I'm like, holy crap, it's nasty out. So, hope everybody is being safe out there and enjoying. We're getting ready for the summer. Hopefully everybody's got good summer plans. Devin says J-Mac is at his best when he is tomato-faced. He's strongly opinionated and it creates good combo. I agree with that. I like that John's confident in what he says. I think that's a good thing, man. Oh, Jaquan. Yes, the Timu Saquon returns. The Timu Saquon returns. This guy thinks I care enough about him to go and meet him in Philly. Yeah, a grown man. I'm coming over. I'm coming to meet you, Jaquan. I love it, brother. We're all people, man. We're all people, Jaquan. Don't forget that. All right. Don't forget that. It's beautiful. Where are you at, Prince, Florida? Or are you you're in Florida, I think, right, brother? Yeah, it's nice down in Florida. Nice down in Florida. It's been horrible in Harrisburg. It's brutal right now. It's been raining. It's supposed to rain all week. Phillies game got canceled last night. They're supposed to have a doubleheader today. I don't even know if they're going to be able to play that. So we'll see. Well, we'll see how it works. I'm going to beat the F out of you. Look at this dude. Jaquan, what do you think? I'm coming to meet you? Yeah, I'll fuck about you, Jaquan. And if I did, it would have been good for you, big guy. Bunch of dorks these days. I love it. All right, I'm getting out of here. We're going to do giveaways tonight. So if you want to check in on the stream tonight, I'll do a giveaway tonight, and I'll do the ones I promised by tomorrow. I didn't get the packages until late last night because I guess the deliveries were delayed because the weather. But I'll be doing more of them. I still have some hats and stuff to give away, so I'll do all those tonight. We'll get the full schedule tonight. I think it's 8:00 on NFL Network. So we'll peep that. I'll go live after the schedule. I might go live like a little bit before the schedule, and then we'll watch as it comes out. I'll get John on for 10 minutes. I'll try and get Cilio on for 10 minutes if he's not boozed up. He might be boozed up. Who knows? But all right, everybody, I appreciate all of you guys for being here. Hit that like button for me, including you, Jaquan. We love our resident Cowboys fans who talk big shit. Where's my guy? What was the one Cowboy fan who came in the one day and he started with saying fuck you to me, and then he ended up becoming a member? What was that guy's name? Blue Virus? Is that what it was? Blue Virus? Where's Blue Virus at? Get Jaquan in line, Blue Virus. Get Jaquan in line. Look at, I don't know. This guy's Jaquan is a bunch of goofies. All right, Jaquan. Cheer up, pal. Life isn't so hard, okay, buddy? Cheer up, buddy. Find the good in life, all right? Find the good in life, big guy. All right, I appreciate all you guys. Hit that like button for me, and we'll see you later on, 2 to 6 with the National Football Show, and then we'll be live again tonight for the schedule release. Appreciate all of you guys. See you next time, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.